Okay, this is Misery Loves Company, a weekly social reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. Every Friday, we welcome outsider and transgressive writers to come and share their work. If you're watching this, you know this shit by now. Come on, let's just get into this fucking thing. Okay, so first up, we have Jesse. And Jesse, I think you're going to share more from the spy novel you've been
Yes.
working on.
I went first last time, and I guess I'll go first again.
You'd sign up too early. It's
I
first.
know, I'm too enthusiastic, and I just hit that button. Okay, this is from my spy novel. Um, Although there's elements of truth in this. It's called Codename Tarragon. Stefan Mogliubin, during the Second Chechen campaign, was attached to an FSB unit called Wolverines, which specialized in assassinating Chechen separatist leaders who were just asking for it. They'd plant bombs under cars and set up snipers' nests on the top of any buildings that weren't already rubble. Mogliubin was known as Cold Blood in this unit because as they were clearing a city block in the siege of Grozny in 2001 or some godforsaken year, he shot several fleeing civilians in the back with his AEK 971, including a pregnant Chechen woman. It wasn't an accident, not by the stretch of anyone's imagination. He shot her because she ran, and honestly, he felt like killing someone, and it couldn't be explained away to their commanding officer, Zhinin. Mogliubin got chastised for it, but it was very soft, as Zhinin was known to be a limp-wristed fairy who would never dare to cross his own men. Mogliubin spent his downtime in Chechen operations reading comic books. Yeah, sure, Batman and Spider-Man and Wolverine, but he liked to stray away from all that from time to time. He was an intellectual. One of his favorites was Tintin in the Congo, where Tintin, who was this Belgian kid, went to the Congo to educate all the backward savages with big lips and shoot every animal in sight. Rue the Wanderer was another favorite with the intricately detailed drawings of tons of hidden byplay, and the witch Arba, who, like many women Sergio Aragonés drew, was easy on the eyes, slim with big tits, holding a magic frog. He had a metal Herland from the late 70s with the pages stuck together because there was a story by Richard Corbin in it that was full of sex. These books circulated throughout the Wolverines unit, but he always got them back. You don't steal from cold blood. Well, Glubin couldn't read English or French, so he just looked at the pictures and filled in the dialogue himself. 2006, the year they kidnapped Maria Gravel in Copenhagen, there were protests throughout the Muslim world over some Danish cartoons dishonoring the Prophet Muhammad. People were dying by the scores in protests in Nigeria and Malaysia all through that year. Mo Glubin read the news and thought it was a riot. Dumb idiots. He laughed at them and their protests. If he had to describe himself, he would say that he was a free speech radicalni. Anybody should be able to draw anything, and if whole parts of the world didn't like it, they could eat hot dog shit. And as for retaliating against Denmark, they could taste anti-terrorist steel. The kidnapping of Maria, once they hustled the girl into the car, they left Mo Glubin stranded on the streets of Copenhagen. He figured he was off for the night when they left him and went to a nightclub downtown where he got into a fight with two big guys he knew enough Danish to call sodomites. He broke one guy's hand like a pretzel and knocked the wind out of another with a blow to the windpipe. They were punks, and he knew they would take their lickings like men, even though they weren't men, meaning they wouldn't go to the cops, which Mokliubin appreciated. When he caught up with Chlorophyll halfway across God's creation, they'd already killed the Turk and were figuring out how to dispose of the corpse. And Mokliubin was thankful that they left him out of it. He'd had a long night already, and he was sick of Chlorophyll's shit like he was the rooster of the operation. The way he first met Yevgeny Chlorophyll was an odd story. They were introduced to each other to work together on an operation in Thailand assigned by the SVR, an assassination operation, which is why Mogliubin was put on board. The target was a spy codenamed Tarragon, who was in Phuket staying on a resort on the beaches. This was a few months before the Boxing Day tsunami of 2004 unleashed a wave of death and turned the beach into a field of bodies floating and ballooning in the sun. Tarragon would only be in Thailand a few days. Moglubin found out that Chlorophyll knew the man from his travels. They were friends and that they moved in some of the same circles, the kind of friends that kill each other one day. Moglubin asked Chlorophyll why they were killing this man, but Chlorophyll never answered in detail. Instead, he said, Tarragon is an opinion maker, one that Russia wants silenced. To paraphrase, one does not go up to a turbine and pour machine oil over it. One applies a little of the hidden spindles and joints that one has to know. You, Stefano, the oil can. Chlorophyll lured the man to a location on a busy street in Phuket, and Moglubin's job was to administer a slow-acting poison to his kwaitao, or noodle soup, when he wasn't looking. Tarragon was a tall, rangy American man with tattoos and a face that had seen tough times, and he was with a fast party girl who annoyed everybody but probably gave head like a champion. Chlorophyll, once they were seated around a card table set up on the busy street choked with tourists, and once the food had been ordered, managed to take Tarragon off to talk privately about world affairs while they pretended to look for cigarettes. Moglubin was left to stare at the party girl who had gross, dyed red Kool-Aid hair. She sneered at him and went off to find the two others. The noodle soup came along with the rest of the food, and Moglubin quickly applied a few drops of the N14, a toxin undetectable but which would cause lethal heart attack symptoms within 10 hours. He'd studied the instructions from SVR Central, which said that 3 drops would kill any man. Tarragon was a heavy smoker, so it was thought that the heart attack would be plausible. When he and Chlorophyll returned with the party girl in tow, Moglubin gave Chlorophyll the signal that the toxin was in place. They talked. Moglubin and the dumb girl stayed silent. Chlorophyll, who knew upwards of 9 languages, engaged Tarragon in all kinds of conversation and laughed a lot, while Tarragon's weathered face stayed stonier than Easter Island. He ate the kwaitao, though, but so did the party girl. They shared. Collateral damage, Moglubin thought, although he knew Chlorophyll would be angry because 2 concurrent deaths would indicate foul play to even the thickest Thai policeman, and they would have to plug up all kinds of holes. After the meeting, Chlorophyll said goodbye to the doomed couple, and the 2 Russians got the fuck out of the country. They caught a plane, covered their traces, and went to Vietnam, and waited. Through his careful professional probing, a day later, Chlorophyll got wind of a strange case of a Thai prostitute dropping dead of a heart attack at a trance party in Phuket. She had other party drugs in her system, so it was fairly open and closed. No news of Tarragon. SVR Central wanted to know what happened. It was a gloomy atmosphere when Moglubin returned to their Saigon hotel room after an excursion to buy cocaine, to see Chlorophyll sitting by the phone in the dark and smoking. Moglubin didn't know Yevgeny Chlorophyll well at all, but he could tell the man he looked at was in a monstrous mood. How much of the toxin did you put in there? Chlorophyll asked. 3 drops, enough to kill a horse. Tarragon lives. Bullshit. Chlorophyll got out his secure SVR smartphone and started fiddling with it. Moglubin waited in a hotel room with his teeth in his mouth like an idiot. Chlorophyll got up and angrily thrust the smartphone at Moglubin. This isn't current, but it's him. Moglubin watched the video on the small screen as there were shots of some third world street scene, something like where they'd eaten in Phuket. It was a TV show, well produced and edited. Moglubin was about to ask what the fuck this was when he heard it. The voice. Tarragon appeared on screen, talking to the camera in indecipherable English as he made his way through the busy street with another man. Tarragon towered over all the little brown people. They approached the vendor, ordered a taco and a beer. The host of the show ate the taco. His real name is Anthony Bourdain, Chlorophyll said. We've been trying to stamp him out for years, as well as a fuckload of other intelligence services. Anthony Bourdain? Moglubin asked, astonished. How do I know that name? You didn't recognize him? I thought you were playing it cool when we met him. I was giving you credit for subtlety. Now I know it was your stupidity. Moglubin handed the phone back to Chlorophyll, who threw it onto the bed in disgust. He's alive. He's in transit to God knows where to shoot his show. He should be dead. No kidding. We thought the poison would bring him down. We were wrong. It turns out he eats whole snakes. He eats pig anuses in Namibia. He eats street food all over the world. SVR didn't count on the fact that he could stomach anything. Why him? Why kill him? He's an operative, you stupid fuckface. Mo Lubin stood, his face showing no ripples. You must be joking. No joke. A freelancer. He has excellent cover. He's a journalist who travels all over the world. He's like a chameleon. He's done untold damage to governments all over the world, including us. I don't believe it. Who would suspect him? It was true. Tarragon slipped in and out of foreign countries, meeting all varieties of people in all manner of circles. He was a celebrity, so everybody wanted to meet with him. 2 years later, in the summer of 2006, just as the two Russians were kidnapping the American bitch in Copenhagen, Tarragon was filming an episode of his show No Reservations in Beirut with his crew when the 2006 Lebanon war just happened to break out. Bourdain met other spies partying at Sky Bar the first night of Israeli bombing, then spent a week at the Royal Hotel hobnobbing with diplomats around the pool while the airport was being bombed and everybody was trapped. He avoided active kidnap plots at the hotel and exchanged tidbits about Hezbollah activities with shady individuals in back rooms before being exfiltrated on the beach by the U.S. Marines. It was too outrageous to suspect, and all true, Chlorophyll assured him. It was not the last time the two Russians crossed paths with Tarragon. Tarragon and Chlorophyll continued to casually bump into each other in various locales around the world as the years went on. Tarragon was always careful around the Russian. His appetite had vanished. Maybe he knew about the noodle soup from the first. He was a brave, no-nonsense man, and more than once he leveled with Chlorophyll and confessed he worried one day he would buy it at the hands of someone like Chlorophyll, who would make it look like an accident or suicide.
I did not see that coming. I 100% did not see that twist coming. I love the suggestion here, the implication that Anthony Bourdain did not in fact kill himself and was instead a intelligence operative is a beautiful one. But more importantly, the way it's woven into this, it doesn't arrive like as a cheap twist or anything. The thing is so intricately plotted, and there's so many like real life details already strewn in there that when it arrives, it doesn't feel cheap. It feels 100% earned, and it's wonderful. You fucking got me, Jesse.
Well, actually, it's true. In 2006, he was in Beirut and did meet with people and had to be like gotten out of the country really fast. It's fun to watch episodes of his show where he's like meeting with people, and it just seemed plausible to me, you know.
Yeah, you know, I'm not a huge Bourdain fan, but I mean, geez, like the lifestyle he lived, why the fuck not, right?
Yeah. I wonder if any of the lawyer type people present could tell me if I would be exposing myself to a lawsuit if I published a novel where Anthony Bourdain was considered to be a spy or had a fictional life.
Nah, you're fine. Celebrity, man. That's why the poem is also okay, even if it's a bad poem. I mean, once you're a certain level of celebrity, it's part of the public domain, right?
Right.
Say de minimis use and fair use.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not a lawyer, but it makes sense to me. No, yeah, I mean, that's from the little I've read when I've gotten worried about shit like that, because I've written shit about like, public figures too. It does seem like if somebody is a public figure, the standard for it being considered like slander or libel is much, much higher. And like, this is obviously satirical, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think you're good.
Yeah, you have to show actual malice, as your intent.
Right. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jesse. That was wonderful. And thank you, Derek and Adam, for weighing in on the legal question there. Yeah, okay. Up next is Forrest. Derek wants us to know that he's not a lawyer. He's just obnoxious, just in case there was any, just in case we got confused and thought it was actual legal advice that he could get. Okay, anyway, Forrest, you're up next. I just put the link in the chat. Oh, wait, or is Forrest still with us, or did he
Forrest
drop?
appears to be MIA.
Okay, we'll double back to Forrest, and I just saw that he wasn't in the list. So, Adam, you're up then.
So I just have two short pieces. First one is called Larson and the Prisoner's Mail. Prometheus Larson is not like Phineas Gage. He ain't had no rod shot through his dome and such, but he has opened discreetly prisoner's mail. He didn't hound the inmates for it, not likely. They did it of their own accord, Larson reckons. Larson is into his lollipops. Ring ting, 3 rings for Larson, such as I said, candies and such. Smoke rings escape him, as do gin hits. Falling out of fashion and downstairs, but Larson holds on. Larson is tired. Larson is tired of living like culture is dead. What's this he's G'd up from inmate 414807, a rip-snorting holographic. Larson unpacks the meaning. This one's giving me the razz, says Larson. And up tears the letter standing, dust bits into the abyss, only it's a paper shredder. He ain't no greenhorn reader. Like I said, 3 rings for Larson. The last one is called Prometheus Larson. IGN 3. Then wagon nights, clean as a whistle sharp, 7 days on, though ain't no Sunday thinker. I ain't the friendliest clerk of the courts, but also ain't the worst at sea. John Ramsey down in Mississippi, where I's about to lay, soft and alike. But for now, swacked. Don't get no ideas in your sugar head. Though loaves await the summer sunshine, sweet as honey, Tom says, in his Wonder Bread accent, touch of the Midwest. Though he does suck up to, and he does have his airs. He ain't all bad though. He is a coffee and cake type. All the jawbones, quickie to make noise, puffed out of all proper dimensions and the like, from nothing from hunger. Web vibrations from big shots and those small friars and juniper juice. All saddling the donkey, all uncommon like. Racked sleuth cocksuckers and falsies, calling for helio suicides and such. Some of them sincere, destitute, longing, lovely. Hang on residue, pushed, pasted, a few more long days, long nights, morning beats. GIF undergrads on their assembly line. Rankled with fever like Foley Square agents, typing, mincing, frolicking, sputtering, tweed cripples. Crumpled over, hunched, dying, sending foes themselves to marble orchards, virtue alike. Retro looking at like a shooting gallery, infused with a killer Dillard dropped in middle, kicking up a fuss. Saturday nights, baked beans, and some lunch counter uses. The dust settles, flicker screens, murdering thumb sickness, long hours dreary and such. And end all in all palaver, beet red, white, black grays, and ape shit crazies. Larson awakes. He ain't been wake in 40, like Rip. Catches breath, farts, creeps. Screens in, lays low, sees an awful cyber mess. What did I miss? Says Larson.
I love that. I love that turn of phrase, sees an awful cyber mess. Indeed. No, these are fantastic. As usual, I really love the dialect that you're playing with here. I really love all the like wordplay and the play with language here. Was this at all inspired by like the various cancellation nonsenses of recent days and weeks?
It was.
Yeah.
So it's not overt, but yes.
Yeah. I'm not going to say anything about the culture is dead thing. I'm just going to leave that hanging there. But
Sure. Yeah.
But no, this is fantastic. This is fantastic. It's so deconstructive, and I love the dialect you're playing with here. It's just really good stuff. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks.
Next up is Forrest has not returned yet, so We
Wait,
will.
I have.
Oh, you have? Oh, sorry about that.
I'm sorry. I just got back. My phone died. Can I take it away?
Yeah, it's all yours. I'll put the doc in the chat.
All right. No, I was running all around town because I'm leaving the country, and I wanted to buy as many books as I can from my friends. So I went and I bought a lot of books from Manny, and then I traded them all for Charles Bukowski's Women. So that's my joke. Okay, I'm gonna read a fairy tale. Actually, it's very short, and I love you guys. You guys are great. So this is for my nieces. It's called Sneaky Lead Paint Baby and Adventures in Hot Dog Land. Oh, and I have to say that partial credit goes to my partner Jackie, who came up with the username Sneaky Lead Paint Baby for a Citizen app. That's who we are. So once upon a time, there was a little baby who lived in a small shack in a big city. People called her Sneaky Lead Paint Baby because one day she crawled outside and went down to a big apartment building and started eating paint chips. She sat in a corner of the lobby eating red and yellow paint chips, and pretty soon it looked like she was covered in ketchup and mustard with a pool of lead paint all around her due to the enormous amount of time she had vomited over the years. Then one day, the mean old city inspector came by and said, "Excuse me, Mr. Landlord, but why is there a little baby sitting in your lobby eating lead paint?" And the landlord said, "That's not my baby, evict it." The fire marshal and the landlord had to come in with a jackhammer to chisel the sneaky baby out of the lobby floor, where she had become entrenched in a pool of lead. They didn't know what to do with Sneaky Lead Paint Baby after she was freed from the lead, so they dumped her on the beach at Coney Island. She was happy on the beach for a while, laughing at the sun and gurgling up ketchup and mustard paint until she got hungry. Since there was no lead paint on the beach at the time, only sand, the little baby started eating hot dogs. Sneaky Lead Paint Baby didn't have any money, but the hot dog vendor discovered her to be an irresistible attraction to potential customers because of the way she could eat. She could eat hot dog after hot dog without pause because her stomach had become so swollen with paint chips and her senses so dulled from lead that she could never tell when enough hot dogs were enough. On one bustling Independence Day, the hot dog vendor was feeling extraordinarily competitive. So he put Sneaky Lead Paint Baby up on a pedestal in the middle of the boardwalk and started announcing to the passerby with a megaphone about how very many hot dogs the little baby could eat. Soon, a crowd gathered round, and they started hooting and hollering about the crazy hot dog eating baby. A very punctual man took out his pocket watch and shouted, "Dagnammit, this actually might be a world record." And he started counting just how many hot dogs the little baby could eat. 74 hot dogs in 10 minutes, the man shouted. "That must be some sort of ding-dong world record." So, although the sneaky little baby only had the intellectual capacity of a 4-year-old, she was crowned hot dog eating champion of the world. A reporter from a local newspaper ran up to snap her photo and said, "What's your name, sneaky little baby?" And the little baby said, "Nathan." The end.
Thank you, Forrest. That was the best kind of fairy tale, which is to say completely amoral and terrifying. That was wonderful, Forrest. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's exactly the kind of story I think a kid wants to be read, as opposed to like some moralistic fable. Like what would just, yeah, just, and what gruesome, terrifying details too. Thank you so much, Forrest. That was wonderful.
I love magical fiction like that. Thread. I love that.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It's
Okay.
a true story, you guys. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's completely plausible.
Yes. There's so much lead paint in my building. I'm not even joking. One of the reasons I'm leaving and am compromised in many ways. So, anyway, thank you.
Dan, you're up next. Let's see. Put it in the chat.
I'm here. Can you give me like 5 seconds?
Sure, absolutely.
I would like to announce to everyone that I'm going to use that 5 seconds to pee.
What's that? Oh, okay. I almost made you repeat it until I understood what you were saying. My mom's dog is absolutely losing his shit downstairs. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but they're away. They're off somewhere. So he's this tiny little Pomeranian, and he's completely psychologically warped. He has like the worst separation. He's 13 years old and he has the worst separation anxiety in the world. It's really distressing.
Bring him
I'm back.
on, William. Come on, the Pomeranian. That's fantastic. I love those dogs. Yeah.
I'm not a dog person at all. I'm very much a cat person. But yeah, this particular Pomeranian is just like he's just been babied and psychologically warped, and it's a little sad.
I tried to quickly print out the chapter, but printer's not agreeing with me.
Okay.
All right. This is a chapter called Circle of Stones. We lay under the lights now as wait, sorry, wrong one. I started from the end, at the beginning. I do that all the time. Okay. My mother kept sending me albums of collected photographs. They were her happy memories of my brother and I and our family. But for me, they were poisoned by the context of life. My life as I remembered it, the thoughts and feelings and anxieties and confusion I felt from the first time I found an old adding machine in the basement of a family home before it was foreclosed on. My childhood had the scent of pennyroyal all over it, the sound of two screaming adults. The only place to escape from the two most violent senses was inside a video game or inside the make-believe world I could evoke with paper. For days, I let the album sit on the sheepskin side of the Norse blanket I held over my body when I was too afraid to go outside. The framed certificate my grandfather received for his service during World War II, signed by the king, sat behind a picture of him in his curling sweater. Norwegian wool beneath his strange, knowing smirk. I didn't know much of him, but I felt this evil laugh inside of me as I saw it. He survived 3 theaters, and here I was struggling to consolidate the twin productions inside my mind and the one running 24/7 in the world external. It was the war I had venerated, the adrenaline of violence I had been chasing, something I could wield with a computer in a way that created more conflict and chaos than I ever could with my fists, knees, feet, or God forbid, a blade or a gun. The backing on my certificate, or the certificate's frame, was faded and peeling. I pulled the small finishing staples out of the wood with my fingers, and the heads made the inside of my nails bloody. The paper felt so heavy, hanging between the 2 pads of my index and thumb. This was the weight I had been carrying in my mind, thinking I owed the world something, to pick up the grandfather's burden right where he died with it. I walked barefoot to the bathtub that I had just scrubbed and laid the certificate down in the center. I pulled my cock out and pissed until the certificate started to float in the urine near Rusty with lithium salt. Kneeling on the bath mat, I watched it dry for hours, then hung it above the toilet, now yellowed by time and my own dehydration. It dripped down below the back of the toilet, and I watched, waiting for something to change in me, but nothing did. When it dried, I laid it on the bathtub again and set it on fire. The smell was putrid, but it was the last price I had to pay. The ritual is always more important than what you leave behind, right? The bathroom filled with smoke, but when the certificate was ash, I plugged the tub and filled it with water. My phone went off. My friend Sasha texted, "Do you still want to go to the Perseids tonight?" I texted a thumbs up, then stripped down and stepped into the hot water mixed with ash. My grandfather said very little in the time I knew him, and I hope that wherever he was, my silence honored him as I sat with the last records of his violence. Sasha met me outside my apartment, where I still felt the eyes of every human nearby on my body. "I bought shrooms," she said. "I'm not going to take them all." My backpack was full of beer and weed and blankets. When we walked up the mountain, I regretted the wait, but something special was waiting that night, and I wanted both of us to sit with it for a while. It was dark, and when we reached the summit, all the paths went to the same place, but Sasha was leery of the paths without lighting. It was easy to get lost in the city, something about the culture or people that was confusing. I spotted a clearing through the trees and turned off the cement path onto the bluff of woods. Sasha followed me, coming up on the shrooms. "I'm getting tracers," she said. The clearing I saw was a rolling glass park, but near the center was an arrangement of large, heavy cut stones. My hands felt not numb, but the other thing. We sat at the base of the keystone and started drinking and smoking weed, looking up at the stars, waiting. When I felt my left arm go numb, I knew I had to do something. I tore through my pack and found the photo album my mom sent made it inside. I flipped through in the low lights until I found a picture of me and my father standing separated. I tore him from the picture and snapped my lighter with this crazed feeling in my body, kneeling next to one of the giant stones. The wind kept blowing the light out. "Sasha," I called to my friend who was trying to climb the sacred keystone. "Stop being a goblin climber and help me." She giggled as she took her lighter and helped me set the picture on fire. As my father disappeared into the flames, I felt this sense of calm sadness, not at what I've done, but the way I did it. The evil part of me begged for the picture of him to be real and to watch him scream as the light consumed him. He melted away, and the photograph turning to drippings into the grass next to the fire hydrant. When it was gone, there was no victory, only lightness, calm and quiet. I couldn't hear the Bluetooth speakers playing Dark Side of the Moon anymore. Sasha was walking back to the keystone and laughing. She circled around it once and wandered into the shadows in the forest. I left a silver coin and some stickers and a note underneath the fire hydrant as an offering to whatever spirits had domain over the spot. The water protectors, that's what I'll call them from now on. I emptied the last third of my beer to them and then went back to the center of the site to listen to the music and keep drinking. "Hey," Sasha was calling from the shadows. "Hay is for horses." I was cross-faded and I knew better than to leave this spot. Near midnight, the stars and moon had the whole clearing illuminated and I wasn't afraid of the shadows. I just felt happier in the light and it was all I was chasing to begin with. "Come here." "No, you little goblin, if you want my help, you can come back to the special spot." I only saw her short, bright pink hair glistening in the low glow of the orange headlights and the cars in the parking lot in the distance. I heard her growling and then repeating "no, no, no" as she walked towards me with her head bowed. "Are the shrooms kicking your ass yet?" I asked. "A little." I rested my head on the little camp pillow and she curled up into me. "I love this song," she said, pointing her finger in the air as Money by Pink Floyd played. "It's okay," I said. I never really got into them. Sasha let go of my hand and started rolling around in the grass, giggling. The shrooms were definitely kicking in. I stood back up because my leg was going numb for some reason. So I wandered to the stones surrounding the place and ran my hand over each one, feeling every impression. I counted the cuts and the stones and walked counterclockwise to pay my respects. I guess in druidic or animistic cultures, these stones were markers for something. What that thing is, I'll probably never know, but I trust the person who put them here had an idea. I counted the number of cuts on each stone and thought about what I felt as I counted. I felt safe even with Sasha shrieked, "It's starting!" I looked up and saw a shooting star across the sky. Sasha rolled back through the grass to the keystone and beckoned me. We lay under the lights now as Eclipse from Dark Side of the Moon played, and for whatever reason, we were both pulling the other closer. Sasha grabbed my hand just as the wind picked up, and I closed my eyes for a second. I opened them and saw a bright star high in the sky, and she stroked my hand with hers, and for a moment, her hands felt distantly familiar. I remember being young and playing with my grandmother's hands, not in a mean way, but the way where they felt so much different to mine. I remember the way her skin was stretchy, and I remember her long nails that she never seemed to forget when she held my hand. I started crying, and Sasha was crying too. "Someone must be cutting onions," I said, chuckling and sniffling. "Would you please stop cutting fucking onion?" she yelled into the sky. "We're trying to do spooky shit here," I yelled. I wonder if she felt something similar. I wonder if it was a gift for both of us. I hope it was. I hope she felt it, but I didn't want to ask. It would ruin it, maybe. The wind picked up and we started squeezing each other as I heard my beer cans fall over onto the stone. I started to think about my cousin, so when the album ended, I made a playlist on Spotify quickly, then played it for him. I felt like he had been talking to me for a long time since, yeah, I'll never know how, but it was enough to know I would always have family nearby. Someone who knew me before I made myself into whatever I was. A group of people were laughing along the dirt path in the distance, and they walked towards us and lay in the grass to look up at the meteor shower. Sasha got surly. "Why do they have to come here? We don't own this spot. Nobody does. We're all visitors here." "I know, but my vibe is all fucked right now. Come here." I tightened my grip around her and pet her hair. She purred and murmured angrily, but she stopped yelling at the people trying to enjoy the stars. I pet her hair until another meteorite crossed the sky. I saw one. So did I. The nearby group of people oohed and awed with us. I feel a few more lit up the sky, but I started to feel the panic in my body again. It was like my body began to get rigid from not moving around, and so I got up and started to jump and loosen up. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I'm getting stiff. Dance with me." "What?" "Dance with me, please." I felt the panic attack starting to close my throat and make my body go numb, but Sasha's heard the panic in my voice and played along. I whispered in her ear, "I heard you," in the empty spaces between sentences. I lost my way home through the night. Whispers carry like sticks, and a crow's maw. I was stoned for certain, and I don't know if she even heard me mumbling. I'm not a good dancer, but I can rock back and forth and twirl no problem. And it was good enough because the panic subsided. I whispered in Sasha's ear, though she wasn't the one I was talking to. "I just wanted you to hear this. I wanted you to hear me. Even if I'd never love her for real, I loved her in that moment. And I didn't want to say that to her because she might get scared, or maybe I'd get scared. I figured it was an okay thing to stay inside my head, and maybe one day I'd get to tell someone specifically, but probably not. I whispered to her, "It's not productive to mourn a living person all day. I've been a burden carrying myself, dragging myself with square wheels." We danced even when the dark clouds of the night rolled over us and began swirling. Out of the corner of my eye, the shadows began to move in all directions as our feet shuffled back and forth. I whispered into her ear, "It's the song you sing I've heard. It's the music that plays when you enter the room. That's what people will remember when they stare at the ground, waiting for enough time to pass." I felt Sasha's body go rigid, and I didn't know if she was more afraid of the shadows or the storm. But there was no good way of asking because at that point it didn't matter. I held up 2 fingers above her head, the bunny ears, and I whispered, "Say cheese," into her neck. I felt both of us crying and laughing at the same time. So I just held her as tightly as I could, hoping the music wouldn't stop until the sun came out. I whispered into her ear, "It's your party. Try to enjoy it." Then I have a song. 1 second.
the clock says it's time to close now. I guess I better go now. I really like to stay here all night. The cars crawl past, all stuffed with eyes. Street lights share their hollow glow. Your brain seems bruised with numb surprise. Still one place to go. Still one place to go. Let me sleep all night in your soul kitchen. Warm my mind with your gentle stone. Turn me out in a wonder, baby. Stumbling in the neon glow. With your fingers weak, quick minarets. Speaking secret alphabet. I light another cigarette. Learn to forget. Learn to forget. Learn to forget. Learn to forget. Let me sleep all night in your soul kitchen. Warm my mind with your gentle snow. Turn me out in a wonder, baby. Stumbling in the neon glow. Well, the clock says it's time to close now. I know I have to go now. I really wanna stay here all night. All night. All night.
Yeah, that was it.
Copyright strike, here we come.
I mean, I asked you if I play songs.
No, it's fine, Dan, it's fine. No, that was really wonderful. And you have such a knack for like authentically capturing like relationships between two people in a really nuanced and emotionally powerful way. Like everything about the relationship portrayed in that story felt like real, like from the dialogue to the physical interactions to the way it was described. It just totally resonant, totally real. That was a really moving piece, Dan.
Thank you.
And a kick-ass song too.
Yeah, I
Thank
love
you,
that
Dan.
song.
Up next, Eris is up next. Let me see if I can get the link here.
Okay, fuck. I was like, fuck, I don't follow that, but it's okay. I'm already done crying because of that. That was beautiful. All right. No, that was so good. That was a compliment, obviously. Okay. I killed. Oh, I need a minute. Yeah. Okay. I kill the night like the night kills the day. It used to be when the boredom sank in, I'd pick up a needle. But now I'm doing strange and almost productive things like deciding to teach myself to sew or contributing to all of the pollution I can. I cut all of my friends' strings so many years ago. They're broken marionettes on the lawn. My girlfriend goes through my phone and I realize how I barely talk to anyone on a regular basis. My contact lists are notably full of dead people. I'm all profanity and bare knuckle rat-a-tats. Yesterday, I went to the mall for the first time in a long time. All that plastic bag hustle just isn't the same without spiking myself with speed in the bathroom. The mall was the ideal place to get high. The bathrooms were noisy, and everyone already looked strung out on holiday cookie hut treats. It was a fresh-faced alternative to Lou Reed's perfect day. And if you needed more, well, don't we worry. Just lift tips off of the restaurant tables or sneak into the dime bag movie theater and pry bills loose from purses stashed under seats. I never actually did any of that. I never stole money, but they also had a survey station that because everything's fiction. Okay, that would pay $5 for a 15-minute survey on consumer products. All of those things are gone now. Only my high school had bathrooms better equipped for shooting up in. Those flat steel shelves up high, I think most people were expected to rest books on them. I ended up in a Barnes & Noble later on. Black coffee and books in the cafe. I'd been reading for about an hour when I glanced up and locked eyes with some guy in passing. I think nothing of it until it happens 3 more times. Same guy, same ridiculously expectant look on his face. Then he sat down at a table across from me and watched me for about 30 seconds before leaving. Another walk by, another eye lock. My teeth are in a lockjaw because I never got kicked out of this bookstore for getting caught snorting coke in the bathroom or horrific pages out of magazines that I needed. Would today be the day that I get escorted out because I blind some guy with scalding coffee? If you're not otherworldly attractive, don't stalk me. I'd go out with a serial killer so long as he compelled me. God, that turned out to be really shit. Anyway, but this guy is not compelling. He is average and his chin is pointy and he's drinking a frappuccino, and I think about what his mouth would taste like, sloshy sugar and frozen milk, and I get up to leave. I like to give the illusion of humanity, so I return the books to the shelves where they belong. Dropping off my last book, I decide to swing by the bathroom. On my way there, I pass the guy. He's also waiting for me when I come out of the bathroom. And this is where I'm met with a separation from my own self. I know I want to walk up to him. I know I want to get my keys in my hands so I can claw his face. I know I want to say, hey, you've been following me for the last half hour. What the fuck do you want? But this new me, the me from the last year and a half, thinks everyone is a psychopath. And if I go antagonize this weirdo, he'll probably shank me in the middle of the romance section because he fashioned a knife out of book binding and coffee stir sticks. So instead, I zigzag through some shelves so he can't follow me and skip out the side door to the parking lot. And that's it.
That was fantastic, Eris, as usual. I love the sense of missed opportunity here, and I especially love the fact but I love the fact that this missed opportunity was deeply antisocial behavior. There's so many stories about oh God, I wish I had I wish I had told her I loved her or whatever, but there are so few stories that are I wish I had fucking shake that motherfucker with my keys, and but there's something really true about that. What's the term, the French term for the wit of the staircase, that sense of damn, I really wish I had come up with a comeback to that shit sooner, that desire to to get some kind of social revenge on someone that never really leaves you, and I think this is a great example of that.
Aww, that's the nicest way I've ever been called a psychopath. Thank you.
And Gigi put the French term, which I cannot pronounce, in the chat. Thank you, Gigi. Gigi, did you take French?
The speed de escalate. I fucked it up.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
we need
you,
a
Dad.
Canadian to say that. I didn't take French. I just know that word because it's relatable.
Good dealer.
But yes, thank you, Eris. Thank you. That was a great piece. Gianluca is up next.
Hi, what's up, Charlie? Okay.
I just put the link in the chat. You're breaking up a little bit,
All right.
Gianluca. Ooh,
Okay.
you
Should
may
I
have some
maybe
connection issues.
should I disconnect?
Sorry, I didn't. Is he breaking up for everyone or just for me? For everyone?
Should I disconnect?
Yeah, try disconnecting and reconnecting. give him a minute. If he's having too much trouble, maybe we can skip him and circle back. It looks like his piece is a longer one, so. Let's see. Actually, while he's reconnecting, Sam, you're up next. Are you with us still, Sam? Yes, I see him in the participants list.
Yeah.
Sam, why don't you read your piece while Gianluca
Okay.
is kind of figuring out the connection stuff.
All right. This is on expat this
Oh, do
week.
you have a link to it?
Oh shit. Hang on.
Sure.
I'm on my computer and phone.
Because that way I can share it on Twitter too.
Hey Ryan, you were in the Bibles Plus podcast that is the newest one, right? Right?
Where is it?
Anyway.
Wait, it didn't copy the link. Hang on.
It's okay.
It just copied the link to Expat Press. Here it is. Okay.
Gianluca, since you just came back in, just so you know, I'm having Sam go while you figure out your connection issues, and then you'll be up next. Perfect. Thank you, Sam. It's all yours.
Okay. It's called God Recalibrates via the Manifest Image. Let's see. The angels set the instrument to measure the precise and total mood of every individual, and then class and categorize all our plans at that moment, and for every entelechy, then triage. So the largest number flourishes with the least amount of tragedy. It's a thing everyone will look at once or want to. Everyone's planning around everyone else's plans to take a look. So just for a second, we all behave as though we
Hello,
believe.
everybody. Okay, am I back? Am I back in?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Angus. Sorry, Gianluca. Actually, I was having Sam read while you were out. So when Sam's done, we'll see how you're doing. Okay.
I'll just start over. It's short.
Yeah,
Don't worry,
sure, Sam.
you're
Sorry about
almost done.
that. Sorry
No,
about
it's
that.
good. Okay. The angels set the instrument to measure the precise and total mood of every individual, and then class and categorize all our plans at that moment, and for every entelechy, then triage. So the largest number flourishes with the least amount of tragedy. It's a thing everyone will look at once or want to. Everyone's planning around everyone else's plans to take a look. So just for a second, we all behave as though we believe. At that instant, they press a big red button and, freed from anarchy, fated redundantly. So all the propositions whipping towards us were frozen in the past tense and are the only ones we get to have. Since there's an audit trail, which justifies any lack of adherence to previously established protocol, indefinite paid vacation was approved for all. That's why God routed the moon to eclipse the sun on August 21st, 2017. Okay.
That's a fantastic piece, Sam. And I love the way you delivered that. Your poetry is always so precisely and meticulously written. And you're like the perfect person to write this kind of like almost deist piece of poetry about like, I don't know, it's a fantastic poem and it's very well suited for you. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you.
Gianluca, let's see how your internet is doing.
Hey, guys. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh, no problem. No problem. You're sounding a lot better
okay.
now. Talk for
All
just
right,
a little
so-
bit. Oh, uh-oh.
Okay, so, oh, all right, guys. So, just hold on a second.
Mhm.
Just, okay, so, can you, what specific, doc did you link to? Sorry.
Oh, sure. I'll link again. I linked to a document called
Sorry.
Another Excerpt from You Know It's Black. I'll link to it again. There you go.
Okay, sick. Yeah, it's the novel I'm working on. I keep doing all my readings are very, very long. I apologize. But yeah, okay, I'll do this one. There's a lot of stuff that I'm putting. Okay, so I guess I'll just start. Lucian was out with his grand at the pavement, parallel. He could not see his grandpa. You have to look through at the car of his grandpa, pointing to the front window of a yellow Bentley. Obliged and did in fact see his grandpa walking across the pavement. "What are you doing here?" asked Lucian. "I don't know," answered his grandpa. Okay. Yidnar was sitting in his room again. He had recently finished washing the white paint off of his body. The bra and undies were in the lower drawer, and the chest was next to his bed. He was editing a black and white montage of his internet content. He knew that no one would remember him positively. So it should be had to. So he had to, I think it's a contraction of he and had. So he had to memorialize himself. Sorry about that. Jesus Christ. So that one person at least would understand. It would be his final message to the only people that didn't judge him. In a sense, he found a higher purpose through the creation of YouTube videos. He found something to do and a group of people genuinely interested in what he had to say. Before the montage had been an attempted animation. Faggots who he had commissioned to work on the animation with him had bailed. Nobody was interested in his vision apart from the fans. Nobody respected his ideas. They all junked his shit for bigger projects as if his was nothing. As usual, people were a bunch of selfish, two-faced fags. How could they have done this to him? Hoped that when his body appeared on the news, that they would fucking grab and mentally fucking gasp and mentally shit themselves and never go to sleep. And he would laugh at them. The fans were the one group that respected him and had an idea of who he truly between. And so he directed at them the hopeful message that acted as an interlude between the unfinished animated project and the montage. He watched over the montage one last time. The investment, the pure joy found in the act of creation, the emptiness that surrounded everything other than his projects, carefully placed sound bites and made him cry. It made him cry not just because of all the effort, spiritual drive was for nothing, but also because with this video, he would become something larger than what he currently was. He would be mythologized. He would become not just a lonely faggot, but a ghost girl, and not just a ghost girl, but a ghost girl that inhabited everyone's minds. A stain appeared on the ceiling. It made the shape of a peculiar icon. It was a circle with a number 1 inside it. Dead center of the circle was an infinity symbol overlaid on top of the 1. Yidnar considered the symbol for a moment. What was its import? After half a minute or so of gazing at the symbol, he hit render as in his version of Sony Vegas. He grabbed the duffel bag with his shotgun and ammunition inside and walked out of his house. An American flag was planted in the garden as decoration. It was flapping indifferently. Yidnar tried desperately to snap the pole the flag was affixed to. He was too weak. Annoyed by the pointless exertion, Yidnar screamed, then kicked the flagpole. The flagpole did not care. He once again slung the duffel across his shoulder and made his way to a supermarket. Yidnar was not a ghost girl when he died. Because ghost girls don't exist. When you're dead, you're dead. There is no continuation of experience, especially not one where you switch gender. The only place where you achieve your fantasies, where you can achieve your fantasies is here on Earth. However, most of them are impossible to achieve. The people he murdered were also not ghost girls when they died. Nobody found peace because nobody ever does. Chapter 17. There was once a young man who wanted to go to sleep for a long time. That is, until he died. A machine was invented that could create custom dreams. There were pre-made packages based on fictional characters that could be bought and implanted into the dreams as a being made of pure libidinal internal fantasy would strike some as inauthentic. After all, what is the fun of a lover that only bends to your desires? However, there was no official package for Martha the Manatee. Martha the Manatee was a goth manatee that appeared on soap advertisements and had a short-lived sitcom based around her. The young man commissioned a programmer to watch all Martha material and build a digital approximation of her personality. This, of course, meant that the young man would not be dream romancing Martha herself, but the programmer's interpretation of Martha. In that sense, however much the original creators of the material oversaw the project, at least a small amount of the end product would reflect the biases of the programming team / individual programmer. The young man accepted this caveat. However, before he was to undergo a decades-long sleep, he called on Eris to perform his final rites. In that sense, an occult ritual had to be performed before he would leave the physical world behind forever. Eris was pulled through the door and across the city, crashing into the apartment's window. I apologize, said the young man. I should have opened it before I summoned you. It's fine, grunted Eris. I asked simply for you to follow a series of instructions I've laid out to perform a ritual before I succumb to digital fantasia. Sick. Okay, what do I do? The young man handed Eris a list of instructions. She was invited to put on a robe. First, however, she had to remove all previous clothes. Is this a sex thing? She asked. No, replied the young man. Now get dressed. Eris obliged. The first instruction was to activate the electronic incense burner. She waved it around playfully. Next was to carry the young man to bed. He was heavy, so Eris dropped him with a little ceremony. She then copied a magic circle printed on the instructions onto the floor with chalk. She reckoned she had done a decent job, a solid 6 out of 10, as much respect and effort as the job commanded. She sat down in the middle of the circle, waved the incense burner around, and chanted some Latin stuff. The young man had to correct her pronunciation multiple times. After the incantation was done, the burner was to be laid down and switched off. Eris placed the headset on the young man's head and kissed him as per the instructions. She then initiated the program. The process was complete. $1 million were wired to her account. Eris then rushed to the sink and washed her mouth out. Holy shit, I can't believe I kissed him. What a wanker, she thought to herself. Eris then decided to go to Chick-fil-A. She walked over to the nearest establishment. She thought to herself, my tummy is grumbling for some delicious tendies, positively scrummy tendies with yummy scrummy sauce. The Chick-fil-A had employees, starched buttoned-up shirts like the ones Mormons wear with the obligatory black tie, tiled floor with the black and white tiles arranged in alternating crucifixes, and shiny plastic tables covered in shrink wrap. Some of the ceiling lights were malfunctioning. Eris licked her lips. She took a binky out of her pocket and started sucking on it to calm herself. Upon reaching the end of the line, Eris spat out her binky and put it back into her pocket. The cashier looked at her with disgust. 1 serving of chicken tendies, please, with a Diet Pepsi and a small tub of tartar sauce dip, requested Eris. Ma'am, said the cashier, they're called chicken tenders, not tendies. Well, that's where you're wrong. Everyone refers to them as tendies. Everyone knows what is meant by motherfucking tendies. Tendies are scrummy. Chicken tenders, get out of here. Is everyone here not sick and tired of not calling tenders tendies? When will it end? I'm sure before long, they'll have us calling burgy-wurgies meat sandwiches. Enough is enough. Ma'am, they are called tendies. No, they are not. They're called chicken tenders. You need to call them tender like an adult. Fuck being adult. They're called tendies. Will you still call them tendies when you're an old woman? I'm not gonna live till I'm an old woman. Now please log my order for some motherfucking tendies so I can pay. Suddenly everyone in the Chick-fil-A broke into a chant. Tendies gang, tendies gang, tendies gang, they repeated. You see, said Eris, the populace always wins. We know that we are death drive spiraling toward the fetus, and it is great for what has the alternative brought, but pain and retardation. Eris exited the Chick-fil-A, legally acquired bag of tendies in her hand. She enjoyed her delicious meal, burped and then rubbed the crumbs from her mouth. Pepsi soldiers then rushed into the area and formed around the roads leading out from the area housing the Chick-fil-A. Eris asked one of the soldiers what was going on. Ma'am, we need to get you to get back into the Chick-fil-A. There has been an attempted insurrection prize totaling $1 million. However, grand prize icons were accidentally overprinted. Now the people who have had their dreams of being lifted out of poverty via the lottery destroyed, have decided to attempt to overthrow Pepsi control. This will lead to instability and overall systemic decay. Would you want someone genuinely invested in the promises of the Pepsi brand to rule over you, ma'am? Exclaimed the soldier. No, not at all. Thank you, sir. Said Eris. She walked back into the chicken restaurant. She decided to phone up Beaufort. Chapter 19. Hey, Beaufort, said Eris. What's up, babe, said Beaufort. Holed up in a Chick-fil-A currently. There's an insurrection occurring. Sounds crazy. Are you okay? Sure. I'm kind of worried I don't have a soul. Nobody has a soul, babe. Remember the Breakfast Club? Sure. Is it more pronounced when you're a man? Probably not. I see. When can I expect to see you home? Honestly, no idea. The Pepsi militia are murdering the protesters. The protesters are top Pepsi vans and holding civilians hostage. This may take a while. Also, I love you. Okay. Would you like to have sex and get married? Sure. Okay. And then there's part 2. Goths fucking, or Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, or Hail to the Lumpen Proles. John Cross had recently received confirmation from the future he created. For to be able to write his future, he had to exist in the world of fiction. To be granted full and complete control, he had to give up his free will and submit to the computer god. The prophecies he had littered throughout his narrative only solidified the nature of his character. The sinking of Atlantis destroyed the nature of truth. John Cross and Azdak were linked by spiritual commonality. That is, they were once operating under the ghost of desire, but now even the soul had been degraded to match the blackened heart. The connection coiled like a serpent into the core of the earth, creating a spiral. UFOs were a manifestation of disturbances in truth. John was in the process of having intercourse. The recipient of this act was Lydia, an overweight anarchist cat. She wore knee-highs and a skirt. As she was being an apathetic penis receptacle, she wore a gimp mask. John pulled out, but no liquid came out. Instead, he felt a great pain in his urethra, as if the lining was being forced apart. This was, in fact, what was occurring. A small pearl forced its way out of John's penis. Lydia grabbed it and began to inspect the milky sphere. My penis is still sore. You are a disturbing shade of pink, said John. You are a delicate offering, answered Lydia. A pain in the, an elaboration of. That which cannot be expressed, the symbol which can only explain itself, much like we too can only explain ourselves. Lydia held the wet coral under John's nose. The pearl is our one choice. It is our child, she said. About the only child you could take care of, dumb cunt. Thank God a real baby didn't pop out of your snatch, lest you have to stop drinking. Lydia threw the pearl at John's head. Ow, babe. I only said that because I want you to quit drinking. I want you to embrace the monk lifestyle and become a statist criminal. Sure, I'm afraid I can't be. Your worldview is one of embracing universal violence. I'm only accelerating processes that are already there, Hugmuffin. Eris woke up in the sperm stream. Beaufort turned to her. Here's the thing. You're going to need to go back in time to fill in the gaping hole you have left in the dominant narrative. That is, you must complete your vision quest and briefly return to Ral Asan so you can meet Elias's Droogs. Upon the completion of this event, you will be returned to your current world line, he said. What the hell are you talking about? The world needs to know what would happen if you were to meet Elias's friends. It would probably end in an orgy. Yes, that is likely. Jesus Christ, Bo, would you really do that to me? I'm not doing this to you, babe. The world is. And you're bending over backwards to become the world's bitch. Come on, be a man. Show a little fucking spine. It is useless to disobey the mandate of what is, Eris. I can't believe I just offered you my hand in marriage. You did? Oh, yes. This must be before that happened. Not before, sideways from, whatever. The whole world is screaming for some kind of Mindlandian apotheosis. The expulsions of gas, the itches, the static, resting beneath the skin, the stretching, the lengthening, the exhaustion, the interference, the disassociation. All of this is a sign of the world's trauma manifesting. You feel me? Every cell longs for non-existence. And so since we are made up of these cells, we too must long for non-existence. I look at you and I see someone who is very, very tired. I don't blame you. Ligotti uses the example of the individual experience of the seizure as the reminder that we are not a singular consciousness, instead the result of many constituent parts running like clockwork. Now imagine these parts running like clockwork without the side effect of consciousness. That would be the final nail in the coffin for the myth of free will. Consciousness is a stowaway in regards to the brain's other functions. Look at the beautiful sperm wriggling around us with such grace, grunted into existence by ape man hunger and vomited from the ugliest organ ever graced with the opportunity to manifest upon the body. Look at mine, for example, one shaft, 4 heads, like little thumbs branching out from a sturdy tree. It looks downright scary, like a monster. Mole penises make the ladies shudder. You ever been to a bachelor's night where the mole men get serviced by a woman of any other species? The hookers look at the penis with fear. I don't know what it's like to have a mole penis inserted in you. Hookers are paid to lie and say it was good anyway. So all the time I'm thinking about whether I'm compatible with the majority of the population, you know? What I'm saying is that there is a brotherhood of suffering stretching across every living thing, and it is this universality of suffering, this recognition of the pain inherent in being something that allows us to forgive. And in that sense, we're all on the cross, you know? I walk around, I'm happy to see the brothers who rip me off. You know why? Because I know that they either suffered as a result of their sin against me, for sin can only ever exist in relation to an individual's perspective. In this way, sin is more of a transaction than universal property, or are bereft of ability to feel remorse for such an action, in which case they're suffering from another deficiency. And even if that's not the case, I forgive them. As what would cursing them do but add more pain onto the pile? No, to forgive is to divine. It's the only worthwhile, it's the only universally worthwhile thing to do. To look into another's eyes and say, it's okay, your suffering is over. To rebuke that is to rebuke the ghost of an idea that is encoded in every sperm and every bit of amateur Python code. You claim that someone is suffering if they feel no remorse. You're inventing suffering in order to justify your framework. Now, it is a good framework, among the better ones I've seen, but not at all an objective representation of reality. Oh, and what is? That some people are simply bastards. They don't care. There is no secret suffering beneath the surface. There is no smoking of the soul, no crisping of the inside, no curdling of the honey milk of kindness. You get me? I agree that the forgiveness is a wonderful thing, but it is made wonderful only by the possibility that the individual receiving forgiveness doesn't deserve it. People question why the burden of forgiveness is placed upon the victim of the crime, to which I say, to whom else should it fall upon? To whom else can it fall upon? And so the individual who commits the crime is encouraged to run away and not face the individual against which they have sinned. In other words, we lionize cowardice. Does this not seem backwards? I wouldn't call it cowardice, I would call it pragmatism. So you'd agree that it is sometimes better to run away than to apologize to someone you have grievously hurt? I suppose it depends on whether you are utilitarian. If your hedonic calculus determines that begging for forgiveness would cause more pain than getting away scot-free, and you value happiness more than following a set of rules you have determined to encompass moral behavior, as it seems sensible to do, considering that happiness can be quite convincingly described as intrinsically valuable, I would say that happiness is the quality that holds the greatest claim to intrinsic value, then it seems reasonable to me that one would simply disengage from the traditional moral responsibility of making amends. But what about rule utilitarianism? I suppose it depends on the specificity of the rule. The rule, it needs to be at least somewhat less specific than the situation proposed, lest it collapse into act utilitarianism. True. I recently read Dessalles' dialogue between a priest and a dying man, and honestly, I think the dying man that immediately went to hell. Immediately, even if the priest was in no way sickly or in bad health, he had a heart attack immediately upon seeing his first breast, apart from, of course, those belonging to his dear old mother, and joined the dying man in eternal torment, another thing I'm morally opposed to and doubtful of the existence of. The dying man appeals to moralism and yet excuses man of everything. Which is it? Is man bound to treat others as he wants to be treated, or is he some creature propelled by capricious nature? The man himself repents of his reluctance in partaking in life's joys, so he must, on some level, not believe his refutation of free will. Perhaps the man was only speaking pragmatically when extolling the virtues of not causing unnecessary harm. Perhaps, but still, I feel as if the dying man makes many claims about how God should work, and his argument rests on claims regarding God's inherent illogic. No, you're not making any sense. What he's arguing is that if God existed, he'd be a sadistic bastard for creating people he knew would end up in hell. And that if he didn't create people who he knew would end up in hell, thanks to the gift of free will, then there would be no difference between that and writing himself into the hearts of every man. What's so hard to understand? His claim of lack of evidence wouldn't apply if God himself were to implant into people's hearts, for that itself would be evidence of God. For sure, if every person were forced to believe in God, then even God's non-existence would not be powerful enough to destroy the existence of God. Exactly, the dying man is entirely consistent. Here's my primary disagreement with him. His argument, if true, would refute the existence of the aesthetic. The aesthetic is that which compels us, despite us not understanding it. He claims to not believe in that which he cannot understand or see. However, one cannot understand or see the impulses which drive us forward. It is nature, not nurture, that provides us the most meaningful of drives. Who can say what drives a man to art or science? In that sense, we at most have free will in all the areas except the ones that truly matter. We cannot will ourselves into not being interested in that which we are interested in. We can only choose specific branches along the set path, like in a visual novel or adventure game. But we know that the aesthetic exists within the mind, do we not? And so while it's not our place to understand it, its existence is undeniable. He addresses the idea when he refers to the sun. He said, is it not our place to understand why it is up there? However, we can observe it. Can we not say the same thing of God? Only if the teleological argument holds true, which it does not. You're engaging in a lot of religious apologism for a materialist. I don't know. I guess it's just something about the certainty of the dying man that pissed me off. That made me in some way hope for a God just so he would go, oh dear, I backed the wrong horse. Perhaps I should not have rung the bell for the 6-woman orgy. And so the priest gets damned too, even though he's correct? He was a wanker too. I don't know. I feel you're being awfully judgmental. My creator narrated a story about me encountering the computer that created everything. The computer that damned everyone to hell. So everyone is doomed? There is no escape from existence? Only an endless cycle of looking at something until it becomes divorced from its function? Quite. I feel that I may have had a hand in my creator turning out this way. You see, I wrote The Monk Mindset under a pseudonym. It is a book that can only appear to those who would be susceptible to its messaging. Upon reading the book, the meticulously crafted symbols embed the morals of the book into the mind of the reader, cause them to forget of the book's existence, compels them to get involved in the book's thriving Reddit community, and most importantly, makes them all think that this is their idea. Through this, I have created an army of serial killers. Not just an army of serial killers, however, an army of serial killers I can command to kill whomever I please by posting suggestive messages on the books dedicated to Reddit. I was angry at him when I met him in hell, but now that I think about him, I'm wondering if John has read The Monk Lifestyle. Part of his diatribe to me sounded like passages from the book. Now I feel a little worried. If this was some random man on the street, I wouldn't care, but this is the man who created me. And I may have indirectly programmed him to become a serial killer through my New York Times best-selling self-help book. Wait, hold on. How to get on an NYT bestseller list if only some people can see it. To those who are not susceptible, it was replaced by a Nicholas Sparks novel. Goddamn, well, at least it wasn't a book written by a video essayist. Once again, Eris, you have made a mockery of consciousness. Well, it's rather easy to make a mockery of. At that point, John Cross emerged from a cave behind our heroes. His head was replaced by a stone carving of an owl. His head was replaced with a stone carving of an owl. Okay, we are all fighting a jihad at the borders of ourselves. The self is a hard-won concept. It is not something that comes easily to be somebody. For all the time, the demons who embody everything we despise climb out of our pores, and we must bat them back with feeble logic in order to maintain the frame of the self. But one day the self will crumble. One day you will see a man dissolve, and soon a world will dissolve, and every man will see their own constituent parts and realize that everything is out of joint. This is good. Rebirth is necessary. The only way to fight the dissolution is to succumb to it so you can be rebuilt as the same thing, only stronger. I was born outside of the time spiral, and so I am the creation, born from the pressure exerted on the spiral's endpoint, crushed by the walls of my own progression, he proclaimed. Sometimes I feel like people think I'm repeating myself. They think that conversation is circular, but I would argue it is more like a spiral. Like, sure, it goes round and around, it repeats itself, but each repetition is a little different. Each repetition is a step closer to the finish. It's less straightforward than a line, but it's just the way I argue, said Eris. I don't mean to be hopeful, said John. I just mean to say that I think we can win the fight to successfully lie to ourselves. One cannot describe the outside world. One may be able to see the edges and contours of one's own worldview, but one cannot dive outside. This is one video game which does not have an out-of-bounds glitch. One cannot activate the fourth day or access the minus world. We will always have our ideas of what is good, even when we acknowledge that progress is a myth. I believe that while time can certainly spiral, especially in certain places, we certainly do not. We exist in a kind of stasis, a sample of cultural jelly. All right, fine, I accept the world's terms. It's the least I can do, I suppose. Wonderful, said Beaufort. And so it was not the case that Elias and Eris partook in some monster energy. They did not copulate and they did not emotionally connect. Instead, he played some sparkling notes on the flute and a great orgy occurred. Eris figured that she may as well get it over with. Nobody objected. I suppose Elias was not so principled as he once appeared, she thought, which overall isn't saying a whole lot. Oh well. Eris stared at Elias as he slept. If only you knew, if only you cared. It is as if there was an entirely different version of you, contingent on a rather insubstantial variation of events. You don't exist anymore. The only thing that exists of you is a strange memory left over from a plot line that doesn't even exist anymore, she whispered to him. I believe the best item on the menu is the spicy chicken with the hash brown on top. The spicy chicken provides a crunchy, abrasive counterpoint to the soft potato of the hash brown. Now here's the thing that puzzles me. You don't taste the sesame seeds on the bun, and yet you notice them when they're gone. They're an integral part of the identity of the burger, and yet they are completely inconsequential. You get me? I mean, why do we notice the absence of the sesame seeds? an element so small and so taste neutral. It is almost as if it is less the burger we are interested in consuming, and more the spirit of the burger, the idea of the burger, said Humphrey Marshall, the Confederate soldier. Muttered Eris in assent. Eris was squeezed behind Humphrey, with barely enough room for her on the saddle. Don't worry, we'll be there soon, reassured Humphrey. So Lydia's having sex with two dudes, right? As far as I can make out, said Humphrey. Witold, the sensitive artist type, and John, the messianic serial killer, and the other node in the twisted cycle of creator feeding off the created and vice versa. Crazy that Witold is the one that doesn't have a persona we know of. Do you have a persona? Yes, and on the day of reckoning, I hope to attain its form. It is a muscular hedgehog that knows how to skate. Is he cool? He's fucking mega. Nice, for real. Humphrey pulled on the reins to prompt the horse to cease trotting. Crazy that you can sit back and watch me torture your brethren like that, said Humphrey. I mean, you're an animal like him, right? Not quite. I'm a demi-human, obviously. I get what you're saying, that I should feel some kinship to such brutes, but I don't. They don't represent me, and they never will. Now, if it was a horseman that I personally cared about, I would be a little miffed. But otherwise, do what thou wilt. Full-on horses are tools of antiquity anyway, practically extinct. Much of an egoist as you've convinced yourself you are. Perhaps. Still, this is like asking to address the moral quandary specific to the rotary phone. I don't feel like putting in the required imagination at the moment. Then you appear to me as if you are a ghoul, madam. The two riders then climbed off the horse and headed to the fried chicken establishment. It was whites only. I have a light brown coat of fur. Is that going to be a problem? No, they don't mind. They only hate black humans. Phew, had me worried for a second. Humphrey ordered a spicy chicken burger with hash brown, and Eris ordered the pickle slushy. You know, I think I know why the absence of the sesame seeds bothers you so much, Eris said. It's because, like all Confederate soldiers, you're a God-fearing man. That's not to say you apply Jesus' doctrine consistently or at all, but you are obsessed with the natural order of things. When you bite into the bun and there is an indication of a bun with no seeds, you think, this is not a complete burger. This is not how a burger should be. And so the sacred conception of what a burger is has been violated. But such a conception is nothing more than a construct, and I think you know that. Eris then stripped naked and presented her ass to Humphrey, at which point she farted conspicuously and stabbed his eye out with her tail. Humphrey grasped the socket, but a ball of pus formed where the eyeball once was. Eris ran out, every aspect of herself on display. Perhaps we should start discriminating against mice, said the owner, Wendy Washington. All animals are nudists, Wendy. We can't hold that against them, said Humphrey, cradling his lost eye, the idea of a face as it should be, destroyed permanently. He then got up, but noticed out of the corner of his one working eye a similarly deficient young man. He appeared to have craters where his eyes were, as if a thin slice of ham ran concave across sockets too big, like the skull of the monkey named Lucy. Black strips of skin hung across the bottom edges of two holes, skin tags hanging like chicken giblets, or slivers of fat on a good piece of steak. Hey, how can you see with no eyes? Asked Humphrey. What the fuck are eyes? Asked the boy. Anyway.
As usual, that was hilariously, perversely brilliant. The last section in particular fucking slew me. I don't know if you could see me losing my shit here, but I am just completely in love with the way you structured this shit. Like the mix of like absurd comic imagery and really like perversely disturbing shit and these long philosophical diatribes. It's like nothing else I've seen, and it blows me away every time. The first section, was that based on Randy Stair? Was that the inspiration for it? The spree killer who had kind of a YouTube persona and shot up that supermarket in, I think, Pennsylvania?
Yes, that was the inspiration. I was inspired to write that after actually watching his last video where he did animated a school shooting.
Yeah, that was really, his entire story is some incredibly bizarre and fascinating shit. But no, as usual, this was fucking awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gianluca.
That was so crazy brilliant, and I kind of quoted a phrase from it because it made me really happy. The apathetic penis receptacle on Twitter. So sorry.
That's very good. I'm glad I'm part of your Twitter posts, Eris. Thank you.
And thank you, Gianluca. So last up for tonight, and it's about 10 o'clock, so I don't think we're going to do an open mic tonight. But last up, Gigi has something to share. It looks like it might be some kind of, let's say, tribute to David Foster Wallace.
He gets mentioned in Taolin, but yeah, how do you follow that? All right, this will be pretty quick. And this is like in a bunch of parts, so I'll just read the beginning bits just because it's kind of long. So David Foster Wallace sits at his writing desk, rolling a small ball of hashish between his thumb and forefinger. He hears his name being called through the door separating the house from the garage and puts the sphere of concentrated marijuana into his shirt pocket. Be right there, says David Foster Wallace. He tucks a lock of hair into his bandana and wipes a bit of sweat from his forehead. What? Replies the voice from inside. David, come blow out your candles. You can't stay in there forever. Oh, says David Foster Wallace. Shit. He stands, spins once on the concrete floor, then approaches his bong and picks it up. Just a second, says David Foster Wallace. He hoists the bong like an accomplished fisherman would a fish and does another spit. Just finishing an essay about television. I'll be right out, he says. The concrete floor under his socks feels wonderfully slick. David Foster Wallace steadies his legs before removing from his shirt pocket and then mashing the small ball of hashish into the resiny bowl piece of his bong. He takes 2 dense, fat hits before returning the bong to its corner in the garage. David, says the voice from inside, the candles are melting. David Foster Wallace wipes his face with his hands before putting on a bandana and shakily moonwalking to the door. My cat's saying hi. I'm gonna put him in the other room. 1 second.
Sure.
All right. On a sidewalk in New York, a child holding a mackerel stands illuminated by a streetlight. She steadies herself with a few breaths, takes a small hop, and launches the fish. It slaps through the air and asserts itself against the window with a soggy plurp. Inside his apartment, starting to feel the effects of LSD, Taolin mutters, "Not again," and searches for something to use to retrieve the Xanax he dropped between his bed and the wall. He settles on whipping at the pill with his shoelace and is ultimately unsuccessful, but satisfied with the feeling of leaving behind one pill friend to find later. Taolin walks to his desk and picks up a bag containing a double-digit number of pills of various shapes and sizes. He hears a fish slap on his street-facing window. What the fuck, thinks Taolin. He turns to the opaque poster board rectangle he has been using as a curtain and hears what he thinks is a high-pitched voice talking on a cell phone. The slowly massing children slap their respective fish as they draw closer to the light. 14, now 15 children stand with their faces pointed up, watching Taolin move a large piece of poster board. With a little effort, the window is open and Taolin looks out at the now 25 children standing in a group holding fish. Hey, what are you guys doing, says Taolin. We can't hear you, shouts a child standing near the front of the pack. He whirls a headless catfish at Taolin's window. What the fuck, stop it. Don't throw fish at me, says Taolin in a commanding tone. You can't tell us what to do. You're not God, shouts the child. The girl who threw the initial fish stands with her hands on her hips and sticks her chin out. Yeah, he's not God. Several more children announce their agreement and more fish are launched at Taolin. Salmon, mackerel, tuna, cod. Taolin watches a headless marlin fall to the sidewalk and is slightly impressed that a child could throw such a large fish. That one was pretty good, says Taolin. Yeah, says the child who threw it. What do you want from me, says Taolin. A trout is launched in reply. Do something depressing, yells a child in the front. Yeah, the others say. Taolin narrows his eyes, considering the whole scene. Please leave me alone, says Taolin. A big mouth bass cracks Taolin's neighbor's window. You guys will probably have to pay for that, says Taolin. We're kids, we don't have any money. Taolin replaces his poster board curtain and moves his bed away from the wall. He puts the Xanax in his mouth, takes his phone out of his pocket and tweets, seems strange to have fish thrown at me while I retrieve Xanax, I feel. And this is the last little section I'll read here. 10:09 a.m. David Foster Wallace sits in a bathroom cubicle surrounded by smells. With only a thin layer of what resembles laminated styrofoam separating his elbows from his neighbors. He is in there. He is stoned. 8:09 a.m. the same day. A taxi driver looks at a piece of paper and slows his car to a stop in front of David Foster Wallace's house. He watches a sweaty man with bandanaed long hair approach and place his right hand on the slightly ajar window of the passenger side door. Hello, I hope I'm getting this across correctly, but are you here to take me to, David Foster Wallace squints, looks down, adjusts his glasses, then wipes at his glistening cheeks with the back of his left sleeve. The airport? Yeah. David Foster Wallace removes his hand. The taxi driver looks at the sweaty condensation on the window. He rolls it up. 8:15 a.m. With the car comfortably rumbling over the imperfections on the freeway, David Foster Wallace leans back and reaches a finger, then a hand into his shirt pocket. He squishes a rectangular prism-shaped hash oil candy with his thumb and forefinger. He eats it. 8:35 a.m. David Foster Wallace isn't sure if the edible has taken effect or if he's just a little excited. He isn't sure if he's getting sweatier or if he has reached the sweatiness plateau. 8:36 a.m. David Foster Wallace wipes his cheek with the upper arm of his left sleeve, then ponders for the duration of a lane change if the oysters he ate at 1 a.m. were a good idea. The taxi driver speeds up a little. The other oysters that David Foster Wallace ate at 7:40 a.m. would definitely mitigate THC absorption. David Foster Wallace makes eye contact with the driver in an adjacent car. He should have eaten the candy first while he had an empty stomach. The adjacent car changes lanes and leaves the freeway at the next exit. 8:45 a.m. After checking his watch, David Foster Wallace is sure that he feels the effects of marijuana. 9 a.m. With encouragement from the taxi driver, David Foster Wallace leaves the car carrying his leather tennis bag. 9:25 a.m. David Foster Wallace enters an airport bathroom. He glances at the grout between the tiles on the floor and considers the word dire. 9:35 a.m. David Foster Wallace is not alone in the bathroom. 9:39 a.m. At least 4 other people are also in the bathroom. David Foster Wallace can hear them through the thin walls that surround him in the toilet. 9:41 a.m. David Foster Wallace calls the airline and reschedules his flight, citing a medical emergency, one involving acute and repetitive pain, something downright Lynchian in the way it manifests as an all-encompassing psychic violence. 9:54 a.m. The airline representative ends the call with David Foster Wallace after he requests a company address that he can mail a 400-page essay regarding his current pain to. 9:55 a.m. David Foster Wallace vows to never eat oysters again.
You, you, sorry, you fucking killed me. You killed me with that, GG. That's so good. You should take these and package them with your oh my god,
what's his name? The chef.
Yeah,
guy.
what's his name?
Jon
Jon Favreau.
Yeah.
You're with your Jon
Well, this is like a whole
Favreau
series
piece.
where they meet with Kafka and Albert Einstein, and then Oprah leads them in group therapy. It's
You should package all
ridiculous.
this shit together and like call it like libel or something. Just call the
Please don't sue me. Yeah. Yeah. I'll
No,
work on
this
that.
is fantastic. You could see I was fucking dying. This is just so funny. And especially like the last part of the David Foster Wallace section where he's like describing his symptoms. It's just very good, very hilarious. Thank you, Gigi. See, Jesse just put the quote in the chat and now I'm losing it again. But anyway, thank you so much, Gigi. It was wonderful as usual. And I think we're going to call it a night there. As always, I'm going to keep this thing open so people can stick around and chat, bullshit, whatever. But that's it for the reading portion of this. So if you are watching on YouTube, this has been Misery Loves Company. We do this every fucking week. We tweet out the link about 15 minutes or so in advance of the reading. Every Friday, 8 p.m. I'm fucking rattled. Every Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, we tweet out the link on our Twitter account at Misery Tourism. Click on it, join us. Everyone's welcome to come, to lurk, to share their work. That's fucking it. We're done.